when longer term interest rates are higher, then the money's starting to run out. And finally, that is what is happening.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for December 16th through December 23rd, 2024, while supplies last. This week we feature 2024 1-ounce silver eagles at just $4.85 over spot, one of the lowest premiums we've seen in years. We have a limited supply, so these are first come, first serve. Next, 2024 1/10-ounce gold eagles are just $44.99 over melt per coin. And finally, 1/10-ounce Gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. All of our specials this week are IRA eligible. And if you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us and we'll be happy to help you in that process. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Rafi Farber from the Endgame Investor, now on Substack. Rafi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back, Elijah. Good to see you again.
Well, it's great to have you today. I did want to discuss the economy and interest rates. So it's pretty crazy how we've seen a yield curve inversion for so long, many years now. And it seems like really in recent history, this is the longest time yields have been inverted. But now it looks like they're starting to uninvert, which is often a signal that we could be in for an economic downturn. Did you want to discuss this?
Yeah, I would love to discuss this. I noticed this accidentally on Friday, actually. I mean, I track the yield curve, I track the spread, but I don't check it every day. So I knew we were heading close to some people say uninversion, but that sounds kind of off or unprofessional. So I guess the better way to put it is a normalization. Or you could even argue that it's not quite normalized yet, because even a yield spread or a spread above zero, by which we mean that short-term yields are lower than long-term yields. Like it costs more interest to loan out to borrow money for 10 years than it does 3 months, which that's what it should be, right? Because we're all mortal and we all have a limited amount of time. So the more time that you are separated from your money, the more you should be compensated for that. So the spread between the 10-year and the 3-month treasury bills and treasury notes is now, I'm looking at it on Fred right now, it's 0.06. So you get 0.06, you get 6 more basis points of yield for lending out your money for 10 years than you do for lending it out for 3 months, which this is not quite normal, but it's above zero at least. It acknowledges that at least we're mortal, but if you only get 6 more basis points for lending out money for 10 years and you for 3 months, then I guess, our lifespans would be like maybe 2,000-3,000 years, something like that. Maybe more. I mean, I haven't plotted it on a calculus integral, whatever. But the point is, okay, getting back to Earth here, or wherever it is we are, we're back above zero. So what I did is I took a look at the 10-year minus 3-month yield spread. And I looked at the recession shaded areas, and I'm looking at the chart right now, which is why my eyes aren't looking directly at the camera. And the last 3 recessions, we have 1990, 2001, and 2008, which we all know about. It's somewhere between 3 and 6 months from when the spread goes back above zero to when the next recession is triggered. And the question that people ask me is this organic or is it causative? Is it that, that's okay. I'll just leave it there. My helicopter bin fell off. Maybe that's ominous. Maybe that means that we're ending this printing cycle. Could be. So is it causative? Is it that the yield spread goes above zero and therefore that triggers a recession or triggers a financial crisis? Or is it just correlative, right? That that the fact that money is tightening means that interest rates are going higher. And it's the tightening of the money and it's the tightening of bank lending, right? If interest rates are higher, less people are going to borrow money, and then you're going to have less grease, in the wheels of the Keynesian economy. And then that's when debt starts to default. Then you have the slowdown, then you have the crash, and that's when all purchasing power kind of flows into gold and silver. Whether it goes up and down in dollar terms is a separate issue. And I don't think it's causative. I think it is it's just correlative. That when you start seeing the yield spread go above zero and go higher and higher and higher, that means that interest rates, that longer term interest rates are rising, which means money is getting tighter. It costs more to borrow, which means money's running low, right? So it's sort of like it's like a chicken and egg question. When you ask the question, when the Fed cuts interest rates, right? Does that cause a higher money supply, or does the bigger money supply cause the cut in interest rates and the Fed's just following it down? And it's really a chicken and egg question. But what we do know is that when longer term interest rates are higher, then the money's starting to run out. And finally, that is what is happening. And judging by history since 1990, which is really when the fiat system started to heat up, right? If we count the beginning of the fiat monetary system in 1971, then really from 1971 to about 1980, 1985, the central bank was still trying to gain control of the system. It didn't really have it yet. And then by 1980, 1985, they were able to gain control of it as to where we are now and get things going. And now we're at the end of the ride here. So counting from 1990, when the fiat system, the fiat dollar standard, as we were all familiar with, started to really gain some strength and gain some momentum. Then from that system on, we have about historically 3 to 6 months before the next recession is triggered, and the strength or the severity of that recession, financial crisis, these are all the same words, will be in proportion to how much debt is going to default and how many people that thought they had money no longer have any. And this is going to be worse than, or better, depending on where you're positioned, right? It's going to be worse if you don't have money. It's going to be better if you do, than any other recession that we've ever seen or experienced, I think, in American history or even world history, because we've never done anything like this before.
You've told us many times on this channel that this next round of money printing will really be the last round before we see the death of the dollar. Now, to kind of support that view is that this yield curve inversion is the longest one we've seen in recorded history, it seems like, at least for the US. So it seems like, if we have the yield curve inverted for longer, does that mean that the recession is going to be worse? And if so, I mean, it seems like that would definitely support your view there.
Yeah, again, it's not exactly causative. Right. So I'm looking at the chart here, back in Fred, and the yield curve inverted, at least on the 10-year minus 3-month spread, it inverted on October 25th, 2022. So we're 2 years and 2 months into this. And the next longest one was 2008, right? And I'm zooming in on that right now, and I'll tell you that the inversion lasted from July 14th, 2006 to June 4th, 2007. You could stretch it out because it kind of wobbled up and down for a few more months after that. So the latest day is August 10th, 2007. So we're talking about a year plus, change in months. So that was 2008. Before that, it was even shorter, and before that, it was even shorter. 2000, I'm looking at it right now, is from June 2000 until January 2001. So less than a year. And before that, in 1989, it was from May 1989 until November 1989. So about, what is that, 5-11? That's about 5-6 months. So about the same as 2000. The analogy that might help you understand this, why should it be that a yield curve inversion that is longer would yield to a bigger financial catastrophe or a financial crisis? And if you think of, I got this analogy from my friend Phil Lowe of The Bitter Drafter. I think Dunnigan had interviewed him a week or two ago, and he's up and coming. He's a good friend of mine. He thinks a lot like me, or I think a lot like him. And he used the analogy of throwing a ball up in the air, to imagine or to make it look like you've broken the law of gravity, right? If you throw a ball up really high in the air, it looks like there's no gravity because it's going up, right? Except what it's slowing down. It reaches its apex point and then it starts falling. And once it starts falling, the higher you throw it up, the harder it's going to come down. So an inverted yield curve is basically saying everybody is immortal. Everyone can borrow and lend money at phenomenally low interest rates because since we're never going to die, what's the point, right? That's denying our mortality. And you can do that for a while. You can pretend that you're immortal and you can do crazy things and maybe you'll survive for a while. But eventually, your energy is going to run out. You're going to get old. Your limbs are going to shut down and you're going to die. Well, all of us are. And so the longer we deny our mortality, the stupider we're going to do things. We'll do crazy drugs. We'll take crazy risks, and we could end up dying early doing something stupid. So that's the economic equivalent of that is living in an economy with a negative yield spread. Right? It makes you take stupid risks that you shouldn't be taking, like for example, buying assets that don't exist. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. This, it's nuts what's going on. Or starting wars that you can't afford to pay for. There's wars all the time, and starting potentially World War III in a bid to keep the economy going. I mean, you can't get much crazier than this on a planetary scale. So thank God we're out of this negative yield spread, which is causing not just monetary insanity, but academic insanity. All this money going to every crazy place in the economy that you couldn't possibly imagine would exist. I always bring the example of like peak insanity is like child mutilation surgery. Those things are funded by inflation, by government. It's just, this has got to end. And it's going to end by among other things, the yield spread going positive. If we're going to plug it back into basic economics.
You mentioned how this has got to end, right? And I think, as you have mentioned before, this inflation just, the inflation is a lie, right? When the Fed creates more and more currency, they're not really creating wealth. They're just stealing wealth from everyone else, and it creates an artificial economy. And that lie kind of bleeds into other areas, as you mentioned. Now, when it comes to kind of the solution to this, if the dollar dies, obviously the government is going to come out with a solution, maybe a central bank digital currency. We're already seeing other nations like China and India roll out central bank digital currencies. India just testing out a digital rupee. What is your perspective on that, and how do we make sure that that is not the path forward that we take?
Unfortunately, for some countries, that might be the next step in the pyramid. And if it's going to be, there's not much that can be done to stop it. At least from my perspective. I mean, if you're a mover and a shaker, and you have a lot of influence, then you can set up a local economy that uses real money, or even, let's not think so loftily and just uses paper currency between people in a local economy scale. And maybe you could do that as long as the cash isn't outlawed. So, I mean, in terms of protecting yourself from digital currency, you could do that. That's possible. But I'm not that worried about it, because if you imagine digital currency as the next step in the pyramid, which is what it is, right? Let's take a step back for a second, right? Speaking from an economic praxeological Misesian, perspective here, there's no difference economically between the digital dollar that we have now and a central bank digital dollar, or the rupee that the digital rupee that Indians have now. They have phones, they have the internet, they have, a digital number in their bank account that isn't backed by paper rupees. They have a digital rupee already. It's just what they call a digital rupee is just a better way to track financial transactions. So we're not talking about a new currency here. We're talking about a derivative on top of an existing currency that's just really good at spying on you, and spying on everything that you do. So look, on the one hand, this is terrifying. It's very terrifying. I would stay away from central bank digital currencies, meaning blockchain, government-controlled blockchain it would be a better word for it. It doesn't, central bank digital currency kind of obfuscates the issue. We're talking about a government-controlled blockchain where they can see everything that you've ever done with this dollar, or anything that anyone's ever done. I would avoid it as much as possible, but I wouldn't let it get to me and think that another layer in the pyramid can stretch out the system much longer. Right? You build another floor on the pyramid, it's going to make it even less stable. So I'm hoping these things do not last very long. I'm hoping that everything ends before they really gain any traction. And the more traction they gain, the faster it's going to fall. And then people say to me, well, Rafi, what if they try to stop inflation by saying, well, you can only buy a certain amount of stuff with your digital currency or whatever, and they really try to clamp down on that? Well, I mean, look, hyperinflations have happened before. Governments do not like it when that happens, and they try to clamp down on it in any way. And they do that in Argentina. They did it in Weimar, Germany. They said you can only spend this much amount, but however they try to control it, it never works. So just because it's digital currency, it's going to work? No, the market will always find other ways. If, let's say, the government says, well, you can only buy a certain amount of meat or a certain amount of vegetables with your digital currency because prices are moving too fast, well, then the market will clear with some other form of money, like gold and silver coins. I mean, that's, if anything, the more that they try to control the central bank digital currency, the more that they're encouraging other forms of real money to come out and take its place in the black market. The black market always wins because the black market is the real market.
Now, I did just interview David Morgan, and he had an interesting perspective of what some of these nations are doing when it comes to, establishing central bank digital currency. And at the same time, for example, China and India accumulating gold. China just started buying gold officially again in November. India had record imports of gold in November. His thought is maybe, they're going to try to roll out this central bank digital currency. If that ends up not working, then they might back it by gold or kind of have gold as a backup plan. Your perspective on that, because it seems like what you're saying is, the black market or the people are going to force maybe the government's hand of saying, hey, we're going to use real money.
Mm-hmm. So the issue of central banks buying gold. So let's put it into perspective, right? It's when central banks buy gold to back their currencies, central banks print currency a lot faster than they can possibly accumulate any gold. And I'm not saying they're not accumulating gold, but sometimes, and I don't know about India's case specifically, but when gold bugs tend to talk about central banks buying gold, and then they're, this is going to raise the gold price and we're going to be rich. I mean, if you look at a central bank like Turkey, they buy gold, they sell gold. They buy gold, they sell gold. It goes up and down. It's like, it's crazy. And who wants the Turkish lira? Nobody wants it. Right? It's dead. And it didn't matter how much gold that they bought. So it's not an issue of how much gold a central bank has. The issue is, do people trust that its liabilities, which are its currency, the currency is a liability of the central bank. That's the definition of what a currency is. Are the people going to trust that if they hold this paper liability of that central bank, that they can redeem it for the gold that's on the central bank's balance sheet? I don't think anyone would say that that is even remotely possible. It's not. So I don't think it even matters at all how much gold or silver or real assets a central bank even has. Because once they destroy the currency, the faith in the liability issuing group, which is the central bank, will be lost. And they'll have to sell they'll have to make it convertible if they want people to use their disgusting inflated paper. And in order to make it convertible, they've got to stop printing. And if they're going to stop printing, they're going to have to allow their banking clientele buddies who they control, they're going to have to allow them to crash and fail. And then at that point, their lives get in danger because the people that they control really control them, right? It's an expansion of that saying, if you owe the bank, $1,000 or $10,000, you're in trouble. If you owe the bank $1 billion, the bank is in trouble. So if the bank's clients get in trouble and they need inflation and they can't get it because the central bank is saying, oh, well, we have to restore confidence in our currency, so we can't inflate anymore. Well, then the Federal Reserve Board, or whatever the equivalent of that is in India, could get lynched. It's very possible.
So it seems like there really is no way out of this crisis coming in the near future. And as we kind of coming full circle here, as we look at an inversion of the yield curve, it's signaling that it might just be a few months out until we see this crisis. So your last thoughts for our viewers then, if a monetary crisis is inevitable and an inflationary crisis is inevitable, how do people prepare?
I think I'm hoping. It's hard to tell the difference between thinking and hoping, because I've been looking at these numbers for so long and tracking the craziness of the world in tandem with inflation and seeing everything happening together for years now. And I just want it to be over so that we can save the planet and build from the bottom up again. Right? What are we dealing with now? Drones in New Jersey. No one can tell us what these things flying in the sky are. I mean, there's like momish bona fide UFOs now, and nobody knows what they are, and nobody will tell us. So could things get even crazier? Yeah, I hope they don't. I hope we just end this and go back to a sound currency already. The best thing you can do besides stacking is again, you want a community of sane people. You want to keep your head in this crisis. So you want to be able to talk to people, bar b'inayim, as they say in Hebrew, like, man to man, and be able to express your real thoughts so that you're not self-censoring all the time and worried about what you're going to say. We already see this kind of leg lifting in the United States with the election of Trump. Not that I think that Trump is a savior of anything, but I do think he is symbolic of a major sea change, that the era of censorship and the era of fear, it had a grip on us for a while. It wasn't as bad as the Soviet Union, thank God, which I think is very much thanks to the American spirit, which is still libertarian. It's a libertarian spirit, and it's still alive, and they could not quash it. America was strong enough that with the totalitarianism hopefully at its peak, which was somewhere around 2021, I think. And it has, a little bit flare-ups with Biden trying to start World War III in his spare time. But it's, but basically, what I'm saying is, I think the worst of the totalitarianism is over, and I think we're headed down into the financial crisis in a much better mentality as a country and as Western society. And there's still a lot to deal with, but I think the worst is over. Not financially. I think the worst is over spiritually, and I think that's a gift. So maintain a small community. Keep in touch with people who keep your mind balanced, and for yourself, keep stacking and keep a list of people and their skills at hand so you can call on them when you need them. And most importantly of all, just stay calm and realize it'll be okay in the end. It will.
One last topic before we let you go, and if our viewers are interested in learning more, they can go to endgameinvestor.substack.com, and I'm sure you'll probably be reporting on this soon, but news was just that you mentioned how Chinese interest rates are plummeting. What kind of signal do you think that might mean regarding the end game?
It's interesting. I haven't really thought that through yet. I only found this out a few hours ago, I think on Twitter, maybe. Somebody shared a Bloomberg chart of Chinese interest rates, 10 years specifically, just like plummeting. I think it's like 1% now. And if you look at a chart, it's just falling through the floor. So just as rising interest rate is a signal that monetary conditions are tightening, the currency supply is starting to contract or at least grow a lot more slowly. So falling interest rates are the exact opposite of that. There's something going on in the Chinese central bank, the People's Bank of China, and they're either printing a lot of money now or they're about to, and the market is front running that and waiting for the PBOC to move forward and really stimulate. What that means is is that China is going to have a lot of inflation. Their prices are going to go pretty high, and the prices of Chinese goods are going to have to rise to compensate, and Americans are going to have to pay more for their imports, and they're going bankrupt as well. So, or they already are. So I just think it means that the process of bankruptcy, with China being the supplier and US the consumer, right? If interest rates are going down in the supplier country, prices are going to go up for the consumers as well. So it's just another part of it's another plank of the global hyperinflationary stew that is bubbling, and it will explode pretty soon, within months. I hope. I don't know, but I hope, so we can just get on with it and move on.
Again, if our viewers are interested in learning more, they can check out your Substack, which will be linked in the description of this video here. What will they find there?
They will find at my Substack. I write 3 times a week. It's very monetary policy, central bank focus. What is going on? The Federal Reserve's balance sheet this week. What are the potential trigger points that I'm tracking? And really, I mean, people ask me what I do. I say I'm a monetary philosopher. And that sounds kind of quirky, but that's basically what I do. I try to explain to people in an Austrian sense, from a positivist standpoint, what money is, so that you do not get too distracted by all the weirdness going on, and you keep your eyes and your mind focused on what needs to be done. Stay on ground level. And the instincts that you have, that gold and silver are money and everything else is derivative, they are right. And I explain that in step-by-step progressive way. That's a bad word, progressive. I should never use that word. But I guess it works here. And just to keep people on ground level, and to know that your basic instincts are not wrong. Right? The world never changes. There's nothing new under the sun. We're just in a crazier version of it. But in the end, it always ends the same way, with gold and silver as money, and the pyramid building up back from scratch up. But yeah.
Fantastic. Rafi, once again, thank you so much for your time today. God bless.
You too.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for December 16th through December 23rd, 2024, while supplies last. This week we feature 2024 1-ounce silver eagles at just $4.85 over spot, one of the lowest premiums we've seen in years. We have a limited supply, so these are first come, first serve. Next, 2024 1/10-ounce gold eagles are just $44.99 over melt per coin. And finally, 1/10-ounce Gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. All of our specials this week are IRA eligible. And if you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.